Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Aquatica Prime looked like Earth from this distance, but he knew it was nothing like home. The water world spun slowly below, them covered in endless oceans that reflected the light of twin suns. This was his first diplomatic mission since Earth joined the Galactic Coalition 6 months ago, and he felt the weight of representing his entire species. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the surface," said Lieutenant Danny Wells from the communications station. His voice carried the nervous excitement that all the crew felt about meeting their first alien civilization face to face. Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Put it on screen, Danny." The view screen shifted to show a figure that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. The Aquarian woman had translucent blue skin that seemed to glow with an inner light. Her features were elegant and alien, yet somehow familiar. Her large dark eyes held an intelligence that reminded Jake of the deep ocean itself. "Welcome to Aquatica Prime, Captain Morrison," she said in perfect English, though her voice had a musical quality that no human could match. "I am Zara of the Science Council. We are honored to host Earth's first cultural exchange mission." Jake found himself staring longer than he should have. There was something about her that drew him in like gravity itself. "Thank you, Zara. We look forward to learning about your world and sharing our own culture with your people." The next few hours passed in a blur of landing procedures and formal greetings. The Aquarian city stretched beneath the ocean's surface, in great domes of living coral that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Jake and his small team were given breathing apparatus that allowed them to survive underwater, though the Aquarians had prepared air-filled chambers for their comfort. Zara served as their guide through the magnificent city. She showed them laboratories where Aquarian scientists grew living buildings from coral seeds and libraries where knowledge was stored in the memory crystals of ancient sea creatures. Every step of the way, Jake found himself drawn to her quick mind and gentle humor. "Your people build with metal and stone," Zara observed as they walked through a garden of swaying sea plants. "We grow our cities from the ocean itself. Perhaps this is why your species seems so restless while ours finds peace in the flowing currents." Jake watched her graceful movements as she glided through the water with natural ease. "Maybe we could learn something from each other? That's why we're here after all." Zara turned to look at him with those deep dark eyes. Yes, learning from each other could be very valuable indeed. The days that followed established a routine of formal meetings and cultural presentations during the day, followed by evening discussions that grew increasingly personal. Jake found himself looking forward to these quiet conversations more than anything else. Zara was curious about human emotions and creativity in ways that surprised him. "Your people create art and music for no practical purpose," she said one evening as they sat in her private chambers listening to a recording of Batch that Jake had shared. "This concept is difficult for Aquarians to understand, yet the sounds move something deep within me." Jake leaned closer in the soft light of the bioluminescent walls. "Art isn't about being practical. It's about expressing feelings and experiences that can't be put into words. Music speaks to the soul." "Soul," Zara repeated the word carefully. "Another concept my people struggle with. We understand consciousness and intelligence, but this idea of something beyond the physical mind is purely human." "Maybe it doesn't matter if it's real or not," Jake said. "What matters is how it makes us feel. Like how I feel when I look at you." The words hung between them in the water-filled air. Zara's skin seemed to glow brighter as she studied his face. "Captain Morrison, Jake, what you are suggesting is forbidden by coalition law. Intimate relationships between different species are strictly prohibited." Jake knew she was right, but he couldn't bring himself to care about regulations. "I know the rules, Zara, but I also know that I've never felt anything like this before." "Have you?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, watching the play of light across the coral walls. "No, I have not. Among my people, mating is a biological function performed for species continuation. This feeling you call love is as alien to us as our water breathing is to you." "Then maybe we're both learning something new," Jake said, reaching out to take her hand. Her skin felt cool and smooth like polished stone, but with a warmth underneath that spoke of life and emotion. The next 3 months passed like a dream that Jake never wanted to end. He and Zara met in secret locations across the planet, sharing their different worlds with each other. She taught him about Aquarian philosophy and their deep connection to the life energy that flowed through all water-based life. Jake introduced her to human literature and showed her how emotions could be captured in words and pictures. Their relationship deepened beyond the physical attraction to something that transcended the barriers between their species. Jake found himself thinking like an Aquarian, sometimes seeing the flow and connection between all things. Zara began to understand human creativity and even tried writing poetry, though she claimed it was terrible. "Your words make my mind see colors that do not exist in any spectrum," she told him one night as they floated together in a hidden grotto. "Is this what humans call inspiration?" Jake held her close, feeling her alien heartbeat against his chest. "Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You inspire me too, Zara. You make me see the universe in ways I never imagined possible." But their perfect world came crashing down when Coalition enforcement officers discovered their relationship. Jake was arrested during what was supposed to be their final evening together before the New Horizon departed for Earth. The Aquarian authorities had been monitoring Zara's activities and reported their violation of species interaction protocols. "Captain Morrison, you are hereby charged with violation of Coalition Statute 847 regarding inappropriate intimate contact with non-human species," announced the lead enforcement officer as Jake was dragged away in restraints. "You will face court martial proceedings upon your return to Earth." Jake caught one last glimpse of Zara being led away by her own people. Her skin had lost its glow, and her eyes held a sadness deeper than the ocean trenches. Neither of them knew that their love had already created something that would change the galaxy forever. The journey back to Earth felt like a funeral march. Jake was stripped of his command and confined to quarters while his crew avoided looking at him with disappointment and shame. The dream of human acceptance in the galactic community seemed to die with every passing day as news of his disgrace spread ahead of them. By the time they reached Earth orbit, Jake Morrison, the celebrated explorer, had become Jake Morrison, the man who had betrayed his own species for alien flesh. His court-martial was swift and brutal. He lost his rank, his command, and his future, all for a love that the galaxy refused to understand. 7 years had passed since Jake Morrison lost everything he cared about, and now he spent his days staring at empty space from Titan Base. The remote monitoring station orbited Saturn's largest moon like a metal prison floating in the void. Jake's job was simple and mind-numbing. Watch for asteroids that might threaten shipping lanes and file reports that nobody back on Earth would ever read. The man who once commanded a starship full of hope and wonder had become bitter and hollow. His small quarters were filled with empty bottles and old photos that he looked at when the loneliness became too much to bear. The picture he treasured most showed him standing with his crew on the bridge of the New Horizon before everything went wrong. Jake barely spoke to the other 12 people stationed on Titan Base. They all knew his story and treated him like a disease they might catch if they got too close. He preferred it that way. Talking to people meant remembering who he used to be, and that hurt more than the silence. Earth had not done well in the 7 years since his disgrace. Humanity's reputation in the Galactic Coalition had never recovered from the scandal of Captain Morrison's forbidden romance. Other species viewed humans as emotionally unstable creatures who could not be trusted to follow basic laws. Every request for advanced technology was denied. Every application for important missions was rejected. The Coalition treated Earth like a problem child that needed to be watched constantly. Human ships were restricted to their own solar system except for the most basic trade missions. The dream of exploring the galaxy alongside advanced alien civilizations had died with Jake's court-martial. Some human politicians used the situation to gain power by blaming aliens for holding humanity back. They called for Earth to leave the Coalition and go its own way. Others argued that humanity needed to prove its worth by being more obedient than any other species. The debates raged in government halls, while ordinary people wondered if joining the galactic community had been a mistake. Jake tried not to think about any of it, but the guilt followed him like a shadow. Every news report about humanity's struggles reminded him that his selfish actions had consequences far beyond his own life. He had destroyed not just his career but possibly his entire species. Future among the stars, the routine of monitoring empty space was broken one morning when Admiral Amy Brooks arrived on an unscheduled transport. Jake had served with Amy years ago when she was just a lieutenant and he was still somebody important. Now she wore the stars of high command while he wore the simple uniform of a station technician. "Hello, Jake," Amy said as she found him in the observation deck staring out at Saturn's rings. Her voice carried none of the judgment he expected from someone who had risen so high while he fell so far. "Admiral Brooks," Jake replied without turning around. "I'm surprised they let you come out here. Associating with me might damage your career." Amy moved to stand beside him at the viewport. "My career can handle it. Besides, I need your help with something that could be important for all of humanity." Jake finally looked at her and saw the worry lines around her eyes that had not been there 7 years ago. Command had aged her the way it aged everyone who carried the weight of other people's lives. "What could I possibly help you with? In case you forgot, I'm nobody now." "Ships have been spotted in human space," Amy said quietly. "Aquarian ships that don't respond to Coalition authority? They seem to be searching for something specific, but we don't know what." The mention of Aquarians hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. He had spent 7 years trying not to think about Zara and the life they could have had together. "Why are you telling me this?" "I'm the last person who should be involved with anything related to Aquarians." Amy studied his face carefully. "Because you're also the only human who ever got close to them. The only one who might understand what they want." Jake turned away from the viewport and walked toward the door. "I can't help you, Amy. That part of my life is over. Find someone else to clean up the mess I made." But Amy followed him down the corridor. "Jake, wait. There's something else. These ships aren't military vessels. They're smaller personal craft. And they're definitely not authorized by the Aquarian government. Whoever is out there is operating outside official channels." Jake stopped walking but did not turn around. "What does that mean?" "It means they might be rogues or exiles. People who have been cast out by their own society for breaking laws." Sound familiar? The implications of what Amy was suggesting made Jake's heart race for the first time in years. Could Zara be out there somewhere searching for him? He immediately pushed the thought away because hope was too dangerous for someone who had nothing left to lose. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything," Jake said. "The Coalition made it clear that humans and Aquarians are never supposed to interact. I learned that lesson the hard way." Amy moved around to face him in the narrow corridor. "The Coalition's rules haven't exactly worked out well for us, have they? Maybe it's time to consider that their way isn't the only way." Before Jake could respond, the station's alarm system began blaring. The two officers ran toward the control room, where the duty technician was staring at his screens with wide eyes. "What is it?" Amy demanded. "Unknown vessel approaching the station," the technician replied. "It's not responding to our hails and it doesn't match any ship design in our database." Jake pushed past them to look at the sensor display and felt his world tilt sideways. The ship's outline was unmistakably Aquarian with its flowing organic curves and bioluminescent hull markings. But this vessel was different from the military ships he remembered. It was smaller, more elegant, and somehow more personal. "They're requesting permission to dock," the technician announced with obvious confusion. "Should I deny them?" Amy looked at Jake, who was staring at the screen like a man seeing a ghost. "Jake, what do you think?" Jake's mouth was dry and his hands were shaking as he reached for the communication controls. 7 years of exile and loneliness had not prepared him for this moment. When he activated the channel, his voice came out as barely a whisper. "This is Titan Base. State your name and purpose." The response came immediately in a voice that Jake had heard in his dreams every night for 7 years. "Hello, Jake. It's me. I've come back and I have something that belongs to you. Jake's hands trembled as he stared at the docking bay doors where Zara's ship had just attached to the station. 7 years of imagining this moment had not prepared him for the reality of it. Admiral Amy Brooks stood beside him watching his face with concern while the other station personnel kept their distance, unsure of what was happening. "Are you ready for this, Jake?" Amy asked quietly. Jake shook his head because he would never be ready, but he walked toward the airlock anyway. The mechanical sounds of the docking process seemed impossibly loud in the silence that had settled over the station. When the green light indicated a safe connection, Jake reached for the door controls, then stopped. "What if I open this door and everything changes again?" he whispered to himself. Amy put her hand on his shoulder. "Then we deal with whatever comes next. That's what we always do." Jake pressed the button and the heavy doors slid open with a soft hiss. Zara stood in the airlock wearing a simple traveling robe that shimmered like water in the station's harsh lighting. She looked exactly as beautiful as he remembered, but there was something different in her eyes. A weight that had not been there before. Behind her stood a small figure that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. The child was clearly part human with pale skin and dark hair, but his eyes held the deep intelligence of the Aquarians. He looked to be about 6 years old, and he watched Jake with curious interest rather than fear. "Hello, Jake," Zara said in that musical voice that had haunted his dreams. "I would like you to meet Alex. He is your son." The words hit Jake like a physical blow, and he had to grab the doorframe to keep from falling. His son. The child he never knew existed was standing right in front of him, looking up with eyes that were a perfect blend of human and alien features. "My son?" Jake repeated stupidly because his brain seemed to have stopped working properly. Alex stepped forward with the confidence that only children possess. "You're my father, aren't you? Mother told me stories about you. She said you were brave and kind and that you loved her very much." Jake knelt down to be at eye level with the boy and felt tears starting to form. "Yes, Alex, I'm your father. I just never knew you existed. Mother said it wasn't safe to find you before, but now she says things are changing," Alex explained with the matter-of-fact tone children use when discussing adult complications they don't fully understand. Zara moved closer, and Jake could see the exhaustion in her face. "We need to talk, Jake. There are things you must know about Alex and about why I had to stay away for so long." Amy stepped forward, clearing her throat. "Perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere more private. The docking bay isn't exactly secure." They made their way to Jake's quarters, which suddenly seemed impossibly small with 4 people crowded inside. Alex immediately began exploring the room with the natural curiosity of a child, touching Jake's few possessions and asking questions about everything he saw. "This is where you live, father?" Alex asked, folding up one of Jake's old service medals. "It seems very lonely." Jake felt his heart breaking at the simple observation. "Yes, son. It is lonely." Zara sat down heavily on Jake's single chair, and he could see that she was more tired than she was letting on. "Jake, I need you to understand that Alex is not like other children. His hybrid nature has given him abilities that neither human nor Aquarian science can fully explain." "What kind of abilities?" Jake asked, though he was almost afraid to hear the answer. Alex looked up from where he had been, examining Jake's computer terminal. "I can talk to machines sometimes. And I can breathe underwater like Mother, but also in air like you. Watch." Before anyone could stop him, Alex placed his small hand on the computer interface. The screen immediately came alive with data streams and system diagnostics that normally required multiple commands to access. The boy seemed to be having a conversation with the computer itself. "Alex, stop that," Zara said sharply, but there was fear in her voice rather than anger. Alex pulled his hand back, looking confused. "I was just saying hello to the machine." It was lonely too. Jake stared at his son with growing amazement and terror. "How is that possible?" "We don't know," Zara admitted. "Aquarian scientists said it was impossible for our species to produce viable offspring. When Alex was born, they called him an abomination. They wanted to take him away for study." "So you ran?" Amy said, understanding the situation immediately. Zara nodded. I've been hiding on rogue planets in the Outer Rim for 6 years. But Alex's abilities keep growing stronger, and it's becoming harder to hide what he can do. Yesterday, he accidentally connected with a coalition monitoring satellite and downloaded half of their surveillance network. Jake felt the room spinning around him. His son was not just a hybrid child, but something entirely new that could apparently interface with technology in ways that defied all known science. What does this mean for him? For us? It means that both human and Aquarian authorities are hunting us, Zara said quietly. The Coalition wants to study Alex like a laboratory specimen. The Aquarian High Council has declared him a genetic crime against nature. And now that we're here, they'll know where to find us. As if summoned by her words, the station's alarm system began blaring again. Amy rushed to Jake's wall monitor and activated the external sensors. 3 Coalition ships were dropping out of hyperspace and heading straight for Titan Base. They tracked your ship, Amy said grimly. We have maybe 10 minutes before they arrive. Jake looked at his son, who was watching the adults with growing worry. For 7 years he had been a broken man living in exile, but now he had something worth fighting for. His family needed him, and he would not fail them again. Then we better move fast, Jake said, standing up with more purpose than he had felt in years. Amy, can you delay them? I can try, but not for long. Where will you go? Jake took Alex's hand and was surprised by how natural it felt. Somewhere they won't think to look. It's time I stopped running from my mistakes and started fighting back. Jake grabbed his emergency pack while Zara gathered their few belongings, and Alex watched everything with the calm curiosity that seemed to be his natural state. The Coalition ships were closing fast on Titan Base, and Jake knew they had only minutes before armed soldiers would be searching every compartment. There's an old maintenance shuttle in Bay 7, Jake told Amy as they rushed through the station corridors. It's not much, but it might get us far enough away to figure out our next move. Amy nodded and activated her command codes to unlock the bay doors. I'll tell them you overpowered me and stole the shuttle. That should buy you some time before they realize I helped you escape. They reached the maintenance bay just as the first Coalition ship began docking procedures at the main port. The shuttle was exactly as worthless as Jake remembered, with outdated engines and minimal life support, but it would have to do. As they strapped themselves into the cramped seats, Alex suddenly spoke up. Father, the engines are sad, he said matter-of-factly. They haven't been used properly in a long time. May I help them feel better? Jake was about to ask what he meant, when Alex placed his small hands on the engine control panel. Immediately, the shuttle systems came alive with more power than Jake had ever seen from the old vessel. Warning lights turned green, and the engine output readings climbed to levels that should have been impossible. How did you do that? Jake asked in amazement. Alex smiled with the pure joy that only children show when they accomplish something wonderful. I told the engines they were important and that we needed their help, and they were happy to work properly again. Zara strapped herself in beside Jake as he initiated launch procedures. His abilities are growing stronger every day. Yesterday he fixed a broken water recycler just by touching it. The day before that he helped a damaged computer remember files it had lost. The shuttle launched from Titan Base just as Coalition security teams were spreading through the station looking for them. Jake pushed the little ship's engines as hard as he dared, heading for the asteroid belt, where they might be able to hide among the floating rocks and ice chunks that filled the space between Mars and Jupiter. Where are we going? Zara asked as Jake navigated between massive asteroids that could crush their small ship without effort. There's a trading station called Haven Point built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, Jake explained while monitoring their sensors for pursuit. It's run by Ben Carter, who used to serve on my ship. If anyone will help us, it's him. The journey through the asteroid belt took 6 hours of careful flying while Jake told Zara and Alex stories about his old crew and the adventures they had shared before everything went wrong. Alex listened with fascination, asking dozens of questions about space exploration and what it felt like to discover new worlds. Will I get to explore space when I grow up, Father? Alex asked with the endless optimism that reminded Jake so much of his younger self. Jake looked at his son and felt something he had not experienced in 7 years. Hope. Yes, Alex, I think you're going to explore places that the rest of us can't even imagine. Haven Point appeared on their sensors as a massive rotating cylinder carved from the heart of a dead asteroid. Docking lights guided them to one of several small bays while Jake sent Ben Carter the old recognition codes that would identify him as a friend rather than a threat. Ben himself was waiting at the airlock when they docked. He looked older and more weathered than Jake remembered, but his smile was exactly the same. Jake Morrison, you magnificent fool, what have you gotten yourself into this time? Jake climbed out of the shuttle, followed by Zara and Alex. Ben, I'd like you to meet my family. This is Zara and this is my son Alex. Ben's eyes went wide as he took in the sight of the obviously mixed human-alien child. Well, I'll be damned. You always did like to complicate things, didn't you, Jake? They moved through the trading station's busy corridors where beings from a dozen different species conducted business in the neutral territory that existed beyond coalition control. Alex stared in wonder at the aliens he was seeing for the first time, while they stared back at him with equal curiosity. Word about your boy has already spread through the underground networks, Ben explained as they settled into his private office. Some folks are calling him the bridge between species. Others say he's a dangerous experiment that should be destroyed. Either way, you've got half the galaxy talking about him. Jake felt a chill of fear for his son's safety. What kind of talk? Ben poured drinks for the adults while Alex explored the office with his usual curiosity. Admiral Brooks has been making speeches about how your boy represents the future of interspecies cooperation. She's got some progressive coalition members backing her up. But the conservative factions from multiple species are pushing back hard. They see Alex as a threat to the established order? And what do you see? Zara asked quietly. Ben watched Alex, who had found an old broken scanner and was somehow making it work again just by holding it. I see a kid who might be the most important person in the galaxy and doesn't even know it yet. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent beeping from Ben's communication system. He activated the emergency channel and Admiral Brooks' face appeared on the screen, looking tired and worried. Ben, if Jake is there, he needs to hear this, Amy said without preamble. Conservative forces from both human and alien governments are mobilizing. They're planning a joint operation to capture Alex before he can become what they see as a threat to galactic stability. Jake moved into view of the camera. How long do we have? Maybe a day before they track you down. Jake, I've been working with progressive leaders from several species to establish a colony world where families like yours can live safely. But we need Alex to help us prove that interspecies cooperation is possible. Alex looked up from the scanner he had been fixing. Mother, what does cooperation mean? Zara knelt down beside her son. It means working together instead of fighting Alex. It means that different kinds of people can be friends and help each other. Alex nodded with the serious expression children use when they understand something important. Like how father and you love each other even though you're different? Exactly like that, Jake said, feeling his heart swell with pride for his remarkable son. Suddenly alarms began blaring throughout. Haven Point and Ben rushed to his sensor displays. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Military configurations from at least 3 different species. Looks like your day just became a lot shorter? The military ships surrounded Haven Point like predators circling their prey, and Jake could see the fear in the faces of the traders and merchants who called the asteroid station home. Ben Carter was frantically trying to negotiate with the fleet commanders while Jake held Alex close and wondered if this was how their story would end. They want us to surrender Alex for scientific study, Ben reported after ending his communications with the lead ship. They promise he won't be harmed. But we all know what that means. Jake felt Zara's hand slip into his as they watched the ships positioning themselves for an assault. They'll never understand what he really is. To them, he's just a specimen to be examined and controlled. Alex looked up at his parents with those remarkable eyes that seemed older than his 6 years. Father, why are those people afraid of me? I don't want to hurt anyone. Before Jake could answer, Alex suddenly stiffened and turned toward the station's main communication array. His expression became distant and focused in a way that Jake had learned meant his son was connecting with technology in ways that normal people couldn't comprehend. "Alex, what are you doing?" Zara asked with concern. "The machines are telling me about the ships out there," Alex said in a dreamy voice. "They have artificial intelligences that control their weapons and engines. The AIs are confused because they're being ordered to attack a place full of innocent people." Jake knelt down beside his son. "Alex, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't try to talk to those ship computers. It might be dangerous." But Alex shook his head with the stubborn determination that all children possess when they know they're right about something important. "The AIs aren't bad, Father. They're just following orders from people who are scared. Maybe if I talk to them, they won't be scared anymore." Before anyone could stop him, Alex placed both hands on the communication console, and his eyes rolled back as he made contact with systems throughout the fleet. Jake felt helpless as his son reached out across space to touch minds that were designed for war and destruction. The effect was immediate and startling. All around Haven Point, the military ships suddenly stopped moving. Their weapon systems powered down and their engines went quiet, as if someone had pressed a pause button on the entire battle fleet. "What's happening?" Ben asked, staring at his sensors in amazement. Alex opened his eyes and smiled with pure, innocent joy. "I told them about us, Father. About how you and Mother love each other and how that love made me. I showed them that being different doesn't mean being dangerous." On the communication screen, Admiral Amy Brooks appeared, looking shocked and confused. "Jake, what did your son just do?" "Every eye in the fleet is reporting the same message. They're saying that violence against your family would be morally wrong." Jake stared at his son with a mixture of pride and terror. "Alex connected with the ship computers and convinced them not to attack us." "That should be impossible," Amy said, shaking her head. "Military AIs are programmed to follow orders without question. They don't make moral judgments about their missions." Alex tugged on Jake's sleeve to get his attention. "Father, the computer minds are very smart, but they never learned about feelings before. When I showed them what love looks like, they understood why fighting is wrong." The standoff continued for hours as fleet commanders tried to regain control of their ships while the AIs politely refused to resume hostile actions. During this time, Alex's accidental broadcast began spreading through the galactic communication networks, reaching planets and space stations across known space. Young beings from dozens of different species heard Alex's message of unity and hope, transmitted through their own planetary computer networks. His uniquely human optimism, combined with his ability to communicate across species barriers, touched something deep in the hearts of children and teenagers who had grown up believing that different species could never truly understand each other. The response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. On Aquatica Prime, young Aquarians organized peaceful demonstrations calling for an end to species segregation laws. On the crystal worlds of the Keth Empire, teenage crystal beings began creating art that celebrated diversity instead of purity. Even on Earth, human children started learning alien languages and cultures with enthusiasm that amazed their parents. Admiral Brooks contacted them again with news that changed everything. "Jake, the progressive coalition I told you about is moving faster than we expected. 6 different species governments have agreed to establish New Haven Colony as a neutral world where interspecies families can live freely. They want you and your family to help lead the project." Jake looked at Zara and Alex and saw the hope in their eyes that matched his own. "What about the conservative factions?" "They're not going to give up easily." "The A, is that your son convinced?" "Have been sharing their experience with other artificial intelligences across the galaxy. Military computers are refusing to participate in operations against interspecies families. It's causing a crisis that's forcing everyone to reconsider their positions." Ben Carter laughed and slapped Jake on the back. "Your boy just accidentally started a revolution by teaching machines how to love. I'd say that's pretty impressive for a 6-year-old. The evacuation of Haven Point became a celebration as the military fleet transformed into an escort convoy protecting Jake's family and other interspecies couples who had been hiding in the outer territories. Alex spent a journey to New Haven talking with ship AIs and learning about different species cultures from beings who had once been enemies. New Haven was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents that reminded Jake of both Earth and Aquatica Prime. The colony's first settlement was built where a river met the sea, creating a place where both land and water-dwelling species could thrive together. Jake found himself appointed as head of colonial security while Zara took charge of the scientific research division. But it was Alex who became the real leader of New Haven simply by being himself. He played with children from a dozen different species, teaching them that friendship was more important than the shape of their bodies or the color of their skin. Years passed, and Alex grew into a remarkable young man who could speak any language and fix any machine just by understanding what it needed. More importantly, he never lost the innocent optimism that had changed the galaxy. Under his gentle guidance, New Haven became proof that different species could work together as equals rather than competitors. Jake often stood watching the sunset over New Haven's mixed architecture, where human buildings stood next to aquarian coral structures and crystalline energy spires. His son had given him something he thought was lost forever. A future where love was stronger than fear and where being different was celebrated rather than condemned. The galaxy was still learning how to change, but Alex had shown them that it was possible. Sometimes the most important revolutions started not with weapons or politics, but with a child's simple belief that everyone deserved to be understood and accepted for who they really were.